Hey Tophees, today's guest is Rebekka. She racked up some credit card debt and broke her card lease, which led her to file for bankruptcy. We'll explore the pros and cons and what you should consider if you're thinking about filing for bankruptcy. We'll also talk about government-funded aid and ways for her to increase her income. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe and share with others to help the channel grow. Thanks for watching. I'm Topher, and this is Financial Fit.
My name is Rebekka Leanne. I'm 35. I live in Alhambra. And I would say I make about I made like 15,000 last year.
And I saw you send over your checking account statements. So do you just use that one debit card for everything, or do you have a credit card or other cards as well?
So basically I went through a bankruptcy a few months ago, and I did have like probably $28,000 in debt from the past, and basically I got wiped clean because of my bankruptcy. I was able to apply for another credit card, so right now I do have one. I just started using it to build credit, and on there I have a $2,000 credit limit. I've barely started using it though, so.
Gotcha. Okay, so it sounds like at least for the past few months, your debit card statement is kind of your spending habits so far. We'll probably dive more into the bankruptcy. I just want to kind of go through the docs here so far, and we'll talk more about that in a second. Okay, so I'm looking at your debit card transactions. So it looks like for the most part, you have a lot of Uber expenses. So I'm guessing you Uber for transportation, or do you have a car as well?
I don't have a car, and that's another thing about Uber is like, to me, I'm Christian, and a lot of times when I take Uber, it's like something I felt like God was telling me to do and to converse with these people. So to me, it's like a very spiritual journey. So for me, it's not necessarily just like an expense. To me, is like, to me, like building the kingdom of God and like following the Holy Spirit. So I think that's what I wanted to share, because how I view money is very different from how the world views money. To me, I don't see it as expenditure. I see it as an investment and getting to know people and building the kingdom.
Gotcha. Okay. And we'll dive more to that too. I'll just take some notes here. From this item, I'm looking at all your Uber transactions. It's not too crazy. Like you're probably doing, I don't know, maybe 100, maybe at most 200 a month on Uber transactions. And even though to some people on watching this right now, it might seem like a lot, but you're not paying for gas and you're not paying for maintenance or other expenses with your car. So I have friends that don't have a car, they just Uber everywhere, and if they have friends to pick them up, then they do that. But if you don't drive a lot, you're not driving too far, then it's actually beneficial in that case. So okay, so that looks good. And then once in a while you have like multiple Venmos in one day to someone else. So is that usually you went out with a friend and then you just Venmoing them, or is that like they called it Uber and you're just splitting it and paying them back?
I think that Venmo might be Uber. It's just like I chose to pay with Venmo.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, because when you have Uber trips, you usually have like 3 or 4 or 5 in the same day. And then same for Venmo, it's all multiple in the same day. But it's all pretty small transactions, like $10 or something like that. With Uber, since you use it a lot, do you have a certain, what's it called, count level? I know like for Lyft, you can have like Lyft Pink, and you might pay a monthly fee, but you get, since you use it a lot, then you get discounts. So I'm just kind of curious, for Uber, do you have the same equivalent, or?
Yeah, I am. I think I am part of their like program where you pay like $9.99 a month and you get 5% off each ride.
Yeah, that sounds about right, because a lot of your transactions, I mean, I'm guessing you're going around Los Angeles, and almost all your Ubers are less than like $15. So you're probably not going during peak hours, and probably not going too far, plus the discount. So yeah, that makes sense. I don't see too much on food. So do you have that on your credit card, or you use cash, or how do you pay for your food usually?
To be honest, like when I go out to eat with my boyfriend, like he pays, and then I will pay for, so like breakfast and lunch, usually I pay for that, and then I just sometimes I eat at home or like I go out, but I'll like go to Starbucks sometimes. But I don't spend a lot on food. Most of my expenditure is on Uber and Lyft.
Okay. Yeah, I see like you might go out to eat here and there, but when I see any groceries or food, it is quite small. Like you have, like you went to Ralph's or grocery stores and you spend less than $10. So I'm guessing your boyfriend probably pays for most of your food. And then do you live at home with your family, your parents, or?
Yeah, I live with my mom.
Okay, it sounds like maybe your mom might, be buying groceries, and you probably eat some of that then, right?
Yeah, like,
Okay.
and usually like if I want something, I'll just go to the store and buy like a piece of fruit or something. Like I just like buy things as I need them. I don't really like store things.
Yeah, no, I see that. You don't splurge on anything here. I don't see like crazy like $50, $100 food expenses or shopping expenses. So overall your spending's quite low. And then it sounds like you live with your mom. So do you help with rent, or you just how is that kind of structured for you?
I don't need to pay for rent basically because I live with my mom. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
And her rent's pretty low, but because of just like doing acting, like it's not super stable right now and the work's kind of low. I'm actually applying for EDD, so I'm like hoping to get it. My goal is kind of to build up my YouTube channel so that I can monetize it. So my goal is to have different streams of income, which I kind of do. Like I have like a podcast on Anchor, and then I have a blog that also gets ad revenue, but it's kind of like slow, but I feel like I'm building. And so like my YouTube channel, I'm over 800 subscribers. I'm trying to get to 1,000. I'm trying to get enough views. And then with acting, it's kind of like work will be really, really slow, and then it'll like pick up really fast, and then like I'll have really big months. And like I've like gone on game shows where I won a tons of money, and then there'll be like 5 months without work, you know. Right now, where I'm at in life is that I'm definitely trying to get unemployment because work's just been way too slow right now. So
Yeah, I think getting EBT or food stamps, I think definitely with your income, you can qualify for that. And if you have any questions on that, you can let me know. I can kind of walk you through it. But it's pretty straightforward. And it sounds like you've done some research on that. And
oh
also-
yeah, I like already have it, but the thing is like the other day like there was like fraud on it, and I had to like call them and stuff, and that took like 2 hours.
But yeah, it sounds like getting food stamps or EBT and then getting unemployment will help you out a bit. So before we go into the bankruptcy and kind of talking about that a little bit, what's your kind of life goal? It sounds like you want to pursue your YouTube, build your blog and podcast. You want to share more about God, but is there anything else that you're trying to do in your life or your end goal?
Yeah, I think like so I mean with YouTube and everything. So one of my purpose in life is to pastor lost sheep. So that's like my calling as a Christian. And God has led me to different types of people through different work. And so I'm actually even trying to apply for my car salesman's license, so I can sell cars online. There's like a website that you could do that. So I'm trying different things, and I feel like as I try different things, God has led me to different people that I've been able to minister to in a way. But yeah, so that like my life purpose is to pastor lost sheep, and then I also like in a Christian term I prophesy, so I prophesy to people. But my life goal is like I definitely want to get married. I want to have kids. My boyfriend right now, he's saving money by living in his car. So like his goal is to get like a bigger like maybe a camper or something. And so we have this goal of kind of traveling, and like I don't know if we have a kid, we still want to like be in the car. We both have gone through a lot of grief. Like I haven't seen my dad in 4 years. I lost like 3 friends in 3 years. He lost, some of his family members. And so like we have a lot of emotional grief that we're healing from. And I think the thought of just like being at home for a long period of time, like it depresses us. And so like he's been in his car for like a year and a half. Like a lot of people think it's kind of crazy, but for us, it's more of like the emotional healing that needs to happen. When we're on the road, it helps us more emotionally than like being indoors.
Gotcha. Okay. Next time we sync up, maybe if your boyfriend wants to join, we can kind of plan together. And it sounds like you two are going to be together long term, maybe get married potentially. So definitely it would be good to kind of line up your goals and your finances and making sure you can do what you want to do. I actually have friends that live in campers or live in their car as well. And I also was looking into the cost to like get a used RV or a converted, camper car. So you can get really nice ones and they're quite expensive, but there's also ones like, if you're not trying to drive it too far, you can get, used ones and it's not too crazy, like under 5-10 grand, and you probably fix up some things, but you got a bed, you go to RV park and hook it up and you get water and electricity, and it's not that crazy. And I think for your lifestyle, it sounds like you're gonna be out and about, not at home and just kind of exploring the world. So that's something we can kind of talk more together. What does your boyfriend do for work?
He's a glass blower, and then he also got into acting because like I introduced him to it.
Gotcha. You said, what was the first thing you said? Glass.
A glass blower.
Oh, glass. Okay, makes like the glass bowls and.
Yeah.
Or, okay, he's also in LA.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so maybe next time you can come in and we can kind of see. I do think, if you are traveling or living in a camper RV equivalent, for you, it sounds like most of your things are all digital. So you can definitely do it on the go. And it sounds like if you got your car sales license, it sounds like you want to do it online as well. So it sounds like all your income will be online. And then for him, glass blowing, I guess depends on when you go. He could probably find a job doing that or something similar. Or if he has other skills, then we can kind of see where that goes. But I see a lot of couples, one of them can work remotely, the other one can't, so they can't travel together. It's separate, right? So definitely that's something we can talk more together with him and kind of see how that vibes together. But yeah, I think in terms of you being more in like ministry or pastoring a little bit, have you ever thought of doing that for a church, or you kind of prefer to have more your own, I guess, style of doing it?
I think I don't necessarily like want to. I think because I feel like they already have a pastor. I usually reach people who don't go to church and who are like feel outcasted by the church or like estranged from their parents because of my history with my parents. I feel like people can relate to me. My mother, I live with her, but it's hard to connect with her sometimes because she's not very emotional. So it's hard to like talk about certain things. And I'm still working on that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I just really long for vulnerability and openness in all my relationships and friendships. That's something like I'm striving for. And I feel like I used to go to a Baptist church. I felt like I wasn't completely like honest, or like I felt like I was putting up a front and like trying to be okay with things that weren't okay with me, or like fellowshipping with people that maybe I didn't really like, just kind of forcing myself to be obligated to things I didn't want to do. I'm in a phase in my life where I really want to build authentic friendships and be honest in every one of them.
Yeah, that makes sense. A lot of people, especially with the world now, attachment to parents is quite different because you and I are pretty close in age. Our parents, they were born without the internet, and now we have access to the whole world, and there's some disconnection even though we're connected to the internet. You don't need to go too in detail, maybe it's too personal, but were your parents born in America and also lived in LA most of their life, or were they born in other countries and then immigrated?
So both my parents were born in Taiwan, but my dad stayed in Taiwan after they got divorced, and then my mom came to America. And then so like they're more traditional Taiwanese.
Right.
And then I grew up here since I was like 8, but I was born in Germany, moved to Taiwan when I was 5, moved to America when I was 8. So I've been here for like 27 years or something like that.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm Chinese American, but I'm like a third, fourth gen American Chinese, we're gonna call it. So my parents are pretty much fully Americanized, but I do have a lot of friends that parents came from Europe, South America, Asia, and the culture in America is very, very different. And I think Americans are very open. I think the Asian culture, especially, it's more action versus talking. So I definitely see what you mean by that. But of course, you know more than me on how you feel, so I don't want to pretend like I fully understand where you're coming from. But yeah, that makes sense. I think your goals going through life, helping, like you said, lost sheep, other people, bringing them to God, still making some money. Like, I think based on the lifestyle you want, you're not too concerned with making like a lot of money. It seems like you're okay making enough to live. I might just recommend to have a emergency fund just to kind of protect yourself in case something happens, right? Like if in case you, your boyfriend, or someone gets sick, you can help them out. And of course, with more money, I'm not saying life's all about money, right? But at the same time, if you have some money and someone needs some help, then you're able to help them with money, not just help them move or help them cook, right? So it's always a good option to have a bit more to help other people. Okay.
Because there's been times where I've had like savings, like a lot of savings, and then like I'll need to use it. And I think one of the things I've learned in my faith is that, God gave that to me so I can use it, so I can utilize it, for what he's called me to instead of living in fear. So that's why like I will like go ahead and use that and like every day like exercise that faith that God has given me. And so I think the reason I was like a little bit hesitant about the coaching session, because it was like, oh no, I hope he doesn't like try to tell me what to do. And I've been on another kind of like YouTube thing where like they actually ended up like making fun of me. So like they like titled the YouTube like video in a way that like was like I felt like it was like mocking my faith in a way.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like oh, like she took that many Uber rides for God kind of thing, you know, and not really understanding like my heart and where I was
Mhm.
coming from. So that's why I was like a little hesitant. But like you told me you were Christian, so I was like, okay, cool, you know.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that experience. Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially in entertainment, it's all about the clickbait titles. Like people want to
Yeah,
see someone suffering. I think for me, it's more just understanding like where you're trying to get to, and then making
yeah,
sure you get there and do it efficiently. Efficiently. So like, for example, if you and your boyfriend want to get a camper RV, and travel and stop here and there across the country, maybe other country, maybe outside the U.S. But say you want to stick around U.S. for a little bit, we can make a plan where you save up like 5-10 grand, get a used RV, maybe your YouTube and your podcasts and your blogs picking up. Maybe he has something also remote, and you guys can just travel and spread the word, and make just enough money to kind of survive off of. So definitely, whatever the plan you want, we'll make it aligned and see what actually you want to do, because I'm not here to tell you XYZ you gotta do this or like your life's gonna suck. Everyone has their own goals, so definitely as long as your goal is clear, then we can execute towards it. Yeah, so like, that's a good leeway into, you said you had a lot of savings at one point, and then you said you filed for bankruptcy earlier this year. So maybe we'll start with, so how much savings did you have originally? You said you had a lot. So is that like 30 grand or 10 grand? Or
no, no, no. Oh my God. Well, I mean, to me, a lot was like $6,000. You know, like that to me, that was a lot. But I mean, my boyfriend is saving up for a better car, so he's a saver. You know,
Mhm.
he's the saver in this relationship. For me, like I kind of see it as like, okay, God gave me this amount. Say like he gave me $1,000. To me, that's the money that he gave me so I can use it. And then as I apply for other gigs, sometimes I get like more money. And then like so that money is also what God gave me. And so like I don't really think of it as like, oh no, like I have like I don't think of life as like versus like having a goal and then achieving it, because to me like I can use up all the money I have, because at one point God told me to sell everything and follow him, so I gave all my money away, or like I had to use it, and like I was like scared, and I was actually on the road for like a year and a half where I had to like ask for donations and then hitchhike and then like stay with people, and that really like opened my heart, and like vice versa. And so for me at the time, like it was really heart opening. It helped me to reach out to people, and that's like an experience I'll always carry with me. So to me, like I don't really think of it as like, oh, here's a goal, save up for it. I think that if I have a really big gig and I end up getting a bunch of money, then I'll just buy whatever I need at that time. Like, I can win a car on a game show, and then, like that's kind of how I see life. So I don't really save up for goals. I kind of just like do like whatever God has called me to in faith at that moment. Like I try out for a gig, or I try out for this opportunity, and then like my life has been like that. It's not like very like stable where like other people are like, okay, let me go to my 9 to 5 and like save up like every day. I know how much I'm getting.
Right.
And I never really know like what gigs I end up with, and then what I can make. You know what I mean? So like
Mhm.
it's hard to control, is what I'm saying.
Right. No, that definitely makes sense. Yeah, I think only thing we can kind of plan for is whatever lifestyle you want to live, just be efficient with different steps. So like already mentioned, like applying for EBT, applying for unemployment, so you have some money. Like if you want to go with the flow of pastoring to other people, then that's great. And at least just making sure your mental space is good with that, and you're at the places you want to be. Like I'm not sure if you're gonna be in LA to do this. Maybe you're called to do it in maybe Central California or another state, and you still need to have some money to like get there. Of course, you take a bus and you can get there, but definitely sounds like the car RV route makes a lot of sense. I actually had a friend from church. He and his fiance want to save money, and they did the math, and they found out that if they lived in an RV for like 2 years, they'll save a lot of money and pay off all their debt, and then they'll like figure out like apartment or house later on. So that's a lot of people do this, and it sounds maybe roughing it a little bit to some people, but I mean, if you like the outdoors or you're okay with a smaller space for a little bit, it can definitely make your life easier down the road. So I'm glad you're kind of open-minded with that. Okay, so it sounds like you had 6K in savings at one point, and then you filed for bankruptcy. You said earlier this year, so was that like in February?
Yeah.
Okay, February, and then you said you had 28,000 in debt from credit card debt.
Well, it was like I had a car lease that I returned early, and then some like credit card debt. I kind of ignored it because like someone was like, "Oh, it's gonna get written off," but then it didn't. And then I got sued, so I had a judgment against me. And then one of my gigs got garnished. Like I had some wage that was garnished.
Yeah.
That's when I Googled and I tried to reach out for help, and I realized that, oh yeah, I should deal with it because I didn't know how to like deal with it. I didn't know what to do, and I found a lawyer and like a paralegal, I guess, and he like it was like so easy. Like I was like, oh my god, like growing up, I was told that having a bankruptcy was like really really bad, and so like I never wanted to do it. But then later on when I did it, like I realized like it was fine. Like I was actually able to get a credit card, so I was really surprised.
Yeah, so let's break down what you said. So, out of 28,000, how much was a credit card debt and how much do you think was a car lease debt?
I think the car lease was only like 6,000. Oh, well, I don't remember.
Okay, so
I don't remember exactly. So a lot of it was actually interest, and it wasn't like the original debt. It was just like accrued over time. Because I like most of the debt was from 8 years ago when I started my like business or just doing contract work.
yeah, so you're saying a lot of your credit card debt was from 8 years ago. So maybe you had only 8,000, and then over 8 years, 8,000 snowballed into 22,000.
Yeah,
And
something
you
like
never
that.
paid it, you never paid it off. Okay.
Mhm.
And then your car lease. So give me more clarity on the lease. So you had a car.
Mm.
Um,
So I had the car for like probably a year and a half, but it was a 3-year lease. And at the time, it was the same time where God was telling me like sell everything and follow me. And I was like, okay, I'm like super Asian, like returning this lease before it's due would be like super irresponsible, and then my credit would go down. So I had a lot of shame, I think, when it came to money and like debt and being irresponsible. But I really felt in my heart that God was calling me to just return it and like get rid of it. And so I did that, and like it broke off a lot of fear when it came to what people thought of me, because I realized that I really think that in our, especially in our Asian culture and like Asian American church like community, whatever, there's still a lot of shame when it comes to like doing things that are wrong. Like, and so at the time, like me doing that was just like an act of faith to be like, okay, everything's gonna be fine. I know like all of these things, like it seems irresponsible. All these things seem embarrassing, shameful, like even to my mom, you know? But I did that. And like eventually, like when I did the bankruptcy, like I remember too, my mom was just like you should pay it off, like you're irresponsible. She also had debt, and she went to a consolidator, and she had to pay off her debt every month. And I told her I don't want to do that. Like I don't want to. Like I just don't want to. Like maybe that's like irresponsible of me, but to me, like I made a mistake in my past, and I grew up in a household that taught me that asking for help was wrong. So at the time, I started my own business, and I was like late on rent. I didn't have rent money. I didn't ask my mom for help. I was like really ashamed of it, and I just thought like I like when I went through the bankruptcy, I had a lot of anger towards my mom because I felt like I wouldn't have gotten into that place if she had taught me it was okay to ask for help. But I was trying to do everything on my own. Like I lived by myself, I had an apartment, I leased a car, I was in real estate, I was trying to look the part, and I think when God told me to sell everything and follow him, it broke off a lot of these superficial kind of appearances that I was trying to keep up with to look the part, and like yeah, and so like I learned a lot through this process is that I don't need to people please, I don't need to live for other people.
Definitely. Yeah, I think, especially, I would say Middle East, Asian, and some of the South American cultures, a lot of it's on honoring your parents. And I think that leads to people developing a big people-pleasing mentality where like my parents aren't happy and then I'm not happy, right? So it's definitely tough in America, and it's for the most part pretty different. But definitely I see where you're coming from with, you know, not wanting to ask for help, like the shame of doing that. So yeah, thanks for sharing your story. I think one thing I may ask for, you know, maybe not this week, but throughout this process, I do want to see docs on your credit card debt and in your car lease. You know, if you can just dig it up sometime and I'll take a look at it, just because there's a few people I've spoken to that have, you know, declared bankruptcy, and I just want to kind of see what that kind of looks like and compare different things. So it's all for learning experience for everybody. I think for you, I think for the most part, bankruptcy, it does hinder some things down the road. Like, so you want to buy a house or get a mortgage on a house, get a car loan, stuff like that. It gets tougher. It is interesting that you're able to open a new credit card so quickly. Do you know what's the credit card that you opened? That you had to...
So it's Spirit, Free Spirit. So basically, Spirit Airlines. Right after I completed my bankruptcy, I actually got a lot of credit card deals in the mail, pre-approvals and things like that. Some of them I applied for and I didn't get, but surprisingly, like, because I was like, oh, I'm pre-approved, you know. And then so when I like went online, I actually was able to open one up, and like they even offered me like 10,000 points after spending $500 in 3 months. So I was like, wait, that's when I did the math, that's about $100. So I was like, yeah, like that's pretty much like free money, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, as long as you can pay it off. But yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's very interesting. And I'm just taking some notes because I do wonder if, you know, because you declare bankruptcy, maybe they think that maybe you might go in debt again, and they want to get you to like kind of pay interest again. So it's interesting. Like, you would think they wouldn't do that, but I think maybe a credit card, some of them might be easier to get after bankruptcy, whereas a car loan and a mortgage for a house would be a lot harder. So I'm just, you know, trying to learn how the game works and help other people. So yeah, thanks for sharing that.
yeah, and I think honestly, like, I want to say, so like my credit actually didn't go down. So like right now it's like at 6 something, like 670, which I'm like, maybe it hasn't caught yet, or and then like I remember when I returned my car lease, the thing I was worried about the most was that my credit score would go down, which it did. It went all the way to 400. But I remember just thinking, oh no, I need my credit score for stuff. Like I like, especially being Asian, right? It was like, oh, like this.
You want the highest score, right?
Yeah, like I need to have perfect credit score. I need to have straight A's, like blah blah. And I think what I learned from like my relationship with God, if it's about grace, then God has grace for our finances, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I learned, like I remember just talking to God about it, and he told me, you're not gonna need your credit score. And actually I haven't needed it. Like I didn't have to rent anymore. Like I moved in with my mom, and all of that was in his plan of like reconciling with my family, because I was trying to do it on my own and trying to be independent, but it wasn't in God's plan and story. And like I wasn't relying on grace. Like sometimes it's like in trying to control our finances, we're also not relying on God because we're trying to make it happen on our own time, but God has like a plan for our hearts. I feel like not necessarily in material stuff, but like healing our hearts. Like, you know, I didn't see my dad for 10 years, and so like that's been a long process of healing my heart relationally, right? So instead of seeing life as just like material things, houses, cars, like I had to learn like how do I emotionally connect with people and forgive people and, you know, tell people how I feel. So like being in tune with my emotions versus like the things that I can control, which, you know, emotions isn't something that I can control all the time, you know.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so I think we have a good idea of your financial situation, your past, and you know, it's pretty clear what kind of goals you have. And I know you kind of mentioned like you want to go kind of with the flow, you know, with what God, you know, shares with you and your life. I think the only thing I would ask for you is just, you know, I think there's no harm in having a little plan and having maybe a little bit of savings, maybe an emergency fund. I'm not saying you need to have like, you know, $20,000 in savings, but I do think maybe over time you start saving and investing. I'm also assuming that you do want to live past 60. So I think, you know, having savings for retirement is also important. But I do think even if you only make, you know, 15, 20,000 each year, you get, you know, the food stamps, EBT, you have unemployment, and you at least save a few thousand each year. If you just invest that in a simple index fund, by the time you retired in 30 years, then you have some money to like live off of, and maybe you're not as mobile, but you have money to live off of. So that's kind of the goal I want to kind of hope you're open to, and you still focus on the missions that you want to focus on, but just a little bit savings here and there will compound over time, and when you're 60, 65, you have some money to live off of. You have you get some social security, and I think that will go a long way, because nowadays with technology and healthcare and all kind of stuff, I don't think it's crazy for the life of a lot of Americans to be past the 90s, in the hundreds. I think right now the average is about 60 or 70, so definitely that's something to kind of hope you're open to doing that. I think homework wise would just be, like I said, unemployment, the food stamps, EBT. If you want to get your car sales license, that'd be great to do. It sounds like you want to do it online, so next time we check in, we can kind of see where you're at with that. And if your YouTube starts growing and you get your car license, maybe your income goes from like 15,000 to maybe 20,000, maybe more. Also, your boyfriend wants to join next time, we can kind of align on everything, because like I mentioned, on your expenses, you don't have much food there, and there's no rent right now. But say you and him, get married and move in together, and you start traveling together. If he's paying for the food, it's still kind of both your finances to some extent, right? So trying to see where that is, because maybe you're paying some bills, he's paying other bills. We don't want to have where someone's paying for everything, and other one's supposed to be saving, but they're not really saving. So then it's kind of like, everyone's like, I thought you were saving. And I was like, I am saving, but not as much as you thought I was saving, right? So just kind of alignment on that. And, signing up for a car, maybe we can talk about that next time, whether he's aiming to, get a sedan, or you guys looking to get like a van, like a used van maybe, where you can live and travel out of. And then, just kind of starting to save and invest in a little bit. It looks like you're not too huge on doing like major investments, but it sounds like you might be kind of open to a brokerage account to kind of start investing in not individual stocks, which is more risky, but into broader funds to have a group of stocks, and just put in maybe $50 a month, and I'll give you a good starting point. And then maybe next year, once you kind of stabilize, maybe $100 a month, and then before you know it, you have a couple of $1,000, and the money would be working for you, because the stock market historically goes up around 7-9% a year, and over 30 years, a couple hundred becomes a couple thousand, and before you know it, it'll be compounding to like hundreds of thousands of dollars that you can live off of. And who knows, maybe you have all this money, and when you're on your deathbed, you can start your own scholarship fund with the money that you saved. And I have a lot of older friends and relatives who they passed away with a couple $100,000 that they allocated to their own fund and a trustee and all that. But basically, that money would just sit, and then all the interest will be given to recipients, and that's kind of how the legacy continues on today. So something just kind of give you ideas for the future, where in 100 years, Rebekka would be in heaven, but on earth you can still kind of sponsor someone. Maybe even you find someone like a younger version of you that you want to sponsor once you pass, and he or she carries on your legacy, ministering to other people, and hopefully they have less headaches and stress because you're providing them with some money, maybe, right? So there's kind of different options and ideas, right?
Yeah, I think okay. I used to sponsor a kid in like Ecuador, and I think like for me, I kind of realized like it's not my responsibility, because I think especially growing up with a single mother, like I kind of took care of her, so I actually like gave her money for rent and like loaned her money, and like a lot of times she wouldn't pay me back. And what I realized is like my mom's not like, she gave birth to me, but like she's not really my responsibility. And I
Right.
think I had to break out of that kind of Asian mentality of like, I need to put myself first. And so like I like that, it sounds so selfish, but like a part of me like wouldn't really be concerned about like trying to give someone else a scholarship because I feel like there's tons of corporations that can do that. I would probably like be like, okay, maybe for my kids or something, but so that's why like I definitely want to create like multiple streams of income and just doing something that I like and I love, and so yeah.
Yeah, I'm just kind of throwing out ideas. If you want to focus on saving money for your kids, I mean, the Bible does talk about as a parent to, I think it's talk about like providing wealth to your kids inherit. So that's definitely in the Bible. And I think, like you mentioned, living in America as a Asian American, sometimes you have worse of both worlds because the Asian mentality is take care of your parents. But in America, it's actually very tough because everything's spread out. All live in the same household. Like in Asia, usually the grandparents, the parents, and the kids all live in the same house. So it's easy to kind of help each other. But in America, everyone's separated. So it's doesn't really work quite well. I think also there's a lot of stress in America, especially like taxes, debt, whatever you want to call it. And on top of that, you got to worry about like taking care of your parents. It's a lot to worry about. I think a lot of Americans, their parents for the most part have their life under control. Like most of them, they were born in America, got a good job, and then have savings, so the kids don't really need to do too much for them. But definitely, it's I don't think it's selfish to focus on yourself. I think your mother is adult. She's got to figure out what to do. If she needs to get help, she should ask for it. And I mean, it doesn't really hurt for you to kind of give her some guidance, but I don't think it's your responsibility to make sure she's 100% okay. I think she's old enough to figure that out by now. I mean, like you said, she's been in America for most of her life.
And like she's a lot more like financially stable than I am. And she understands like I do acting, and so it's like kind of unstable for me now. And she's kind of like learned to accept that and just be like, you know what, like give her time and just, you know what I mean. And I think because I had to work since I was like 8 years old, I like sold toys after school and I was really independent. I didn't learn how to receive from people. And so like now I'm in a phase where it's like it's more about not only receiving but just like going with the flow and not being so adult. Like I feel like when I was younger, I was so grown up and so mature when I really didn't need to be because I put all this like pressure on myself to achieve. And I was a workaholic and everything. And so like now it's just like, yeah, like going with the flow of God and like what I really feel in my heart, Yeah.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sum up some of my notes. I'm going to send you some homework kind of things to look at. I think I'm going to send you also my curriculum. I call it the 15 Levels to Financial Freedom. And everyone has their own end goal of what financial freedom is. I think for you, you want to focus on your income streams with YouTube, podcasts, blogging. Maybe you have other income streams and not worrying about, like you said, making money just to make money. It's more of money in the ways you want to make money. So let's make sure we're balancing passion with also some income, and then aligning with your boyfriend on financial goals, family goals, stuff like that. I think I do want you to have a simple budget, just enough so that you're tracking your expenses, but also you're having some savings to start building up some investments. And I think it's good that you have income streams, but it's not how much you make, but also how much you keep too. And like you mentioned, maybe you want to have kids and you want them to have some money, or when you pass, they have some inheritance. So that's something. We'll start with baby steps in that direction, and then as you kind of see how savings and investing looks like, then you can start saving and investing more. But like I said, still have balance with your passions and the way you want to go with God's plan of how you want to live your life. So does that sound good, or you have any concerns, or like you don't agree with something? Like where you kind of stand right now?
Oh yeah, I'm willing to try. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. All right. Any questions or any things that you might have not shared, I didn't ask, you think is also helpful to kind of determine a plan and next steps going forward?
So I think like as far as like the camper, like it's something that my boyfriend more so is like focused on. Like I told him like, hey, you never know, maybe I'll win like a camper from Let's Make a Deal or something, because I've been on it twice.
Okay.
And I'm very big on game shows.
Okay, gotcha.
The reason I'm like not worried about it, a lot of things is because I feel like whenever I need it, it shows up for me. So like that's why I don't plan that much. But like for him, it's more of like I have a plan, I have a goal, you know. So he's more of like the planner.
Okay.
He doesn't necessarily think I'm like, you know, responsible. He is Christian. He doesn't think I'm responsible with money. Like he doesn't understand some of the things that I do, but that's okay. Like, you know, we like everyone has different purpose and passions in life, you know. But yeah, like so yeah, that's a little bit more about us.
This for sharing. Yeah, I definitely think, I study a lot of people that get divorced, and if you know, like in America, it's like 50%, something like that. And in America, it's quite high as well. I mean, in California, it's quite high. And I think finances is something. If you guys are serious about getting married or engaged, then that's something I think to align on. And I think no matter what, there'll be a little bit differences, but if you have the same plan together, then it'll make things a lot easier. So, when he says, oh, maybe you're not being responsible, try and drill down on what he means by that. And I think, we'll talk to next time is I think if you have some plan, some savings, I think he'll view you as a lot more responsible because he's saving and, saving and investing to me is more responsible than do none of it. So I think as long as you start doing that, I think he'll appreciate that a lot more. And, goals on whether you get a camper or a van or whatever that is, once he sees you're saving, then he can, feel more comfortable on the direction of what kind of vehicle to get. And then you just kind of just plan from there. So, yeah, definitely next time, we're trying to bring him on. And, yeah, just kind of align and make sure that you guys are, good financially, spiritually, and just, life going forward.
I think like recently too, I'm not as much concerned about saving because like work's been really slow, so I'm just like using what I have. You know what I mean? So yeah. But I mean we could talk about it more. Yeah.
No, definitely. Yeah, I think especially for you, your expenses are very low. Like you don't have rent, you don't pay much for food, you don't really have any major fixed cost. Like even I think your phone bill, or I'm not sure your phone bill, I guess your mom and you split it, or maybe you Venmo someone. So a lot of your fixed costs are very, very low. So I think not saving too much is okay for now. But I do think they're doing a little bit going forward would help a lot. And then once you get comfortable, we're trying to save more and more. Well, Rebekka, it was great chatting with you. Definitely looking forward to meeting your boyfriend next time we sync up. Yeah, I'll send you some notes, some homework, and then we'll go from there. There's a few things we can learn from Rebekka's story. First is a misconception that Ubering or Lyfting for transportation is not the best use of money. But every case is different. In Rebekka's case, she has Uber Pass, which saves her about 10% per ride. She spends less than $200 a month on Ubers. When you factor in the cost for car ownership, paying for a car, gas, and maintenance, all those things can add up to more than $200 each month. Also, she saves if her apartment charges for parking. Overall, her expenses are pretty low between food, rent, utilities, and transportation. But there's no guarantee that she'll have free rent for the rest of her life, including paid utilities. She should still monitor expenses and also apply for assistance, such as EBT, food stamps, and unemployment. Now for credit card debt and car lease debt that led to her filing for bankruptcy, once I get a documentation, I'll learn how much credit card debt she originally had and how that compound interest led to over $20,000 after 8 years. I will also look at a car lease to learn more about the terms. I recommend preventative measures to avoid bankruptcy in the first place. So paying off the credit card debt and avoiding a car lease. However, the bankruptcy may help Rebekka in the short term. Later, I'll review the bankruptcy documentation and learn more about the cost for bankruptcy. If all her debt is cleared and her credit score was strong enough to get a credit card, she may only have trouble getting a mortgage, a car loan, or applying for an apartment in the next 2 to 5 years. Based on her current plan, she doesn't plan to buy a house, car, or get a new apartment. So for now, the bankruptcy is a bit beneficial for her. However, I still recommend everyone to pay off their debt and avoid situations that make you consider a bankruptcy. For Rebekka's homework, I want to review levels 1 through 5 of the 15 levels to financial freedom. Although she doesn't like feeling stuck with a plan, I think she'll still benefit from having a budget and starting to save and invest for her future. Her investment income can fund her passion projects and also her future family. I want her to finish applying for EBT, food stamps, and unemployment, and any other assistance programs. I also want her to stabilize her income streams. It's not beneficial to have 10 streams of income that all make less than $100 when you can have 2 or 4 and make 3 times as much. Even in my own experience, you really need to specialize in something to make money. Lastly, I want her to be open to start saving and investing in the stock market with a lower risk, low fee index fund. Rebekka is currently around level 2, can easily become level 8 later this year if she starts saving.